Hi, this is Josh from Plugin Machine. I've done a bunch of videos on setting up plugins using Plugin Machine, showing you things like how to set up PHP testing and Composer just in a few clicks. So I haven't just done a lot of like how to use this stuff. So this is going to be a bit of a longer video about how to use the PHP test to integrate a Composer package. And it's a little bit about how I think about sort of test-driven development, where I use tests to get things working in the process. Have tests. It's not exactly what people mean by TDD, but it's what I mean. So here's this plugin that's already set up. This has just all the PHP tooling for GitHub and everything, local development set up in it. It's one of the templates. Let's go ahead and install Laravel's container here. This is just the main class of this plugin. It doesn't really do anything, but I have these tests here, just showing that the tests work before we do anything. So let's go ahead and use Illuminate container/container, and we'll just turn our main plugin file in here, and then let's just make sure I didn't make a silly mistake, like if I had screwed this up. That's not a class. So just the fact that we run this one function in the tests here right here, this auto load works. Just shows we didn't make any mistakes like that. So let's go ahead here and just add container test. Copy this stuff just so we have all the same things. Just to show how this works. I'm going to create a class here so we have something to work with called product. And this is the namespace it should be in. Just so we have the class in here. It's going to be my super basic test, but we'll just do main equals new plugin. Insert instance of product. Include is annoying. So let's run this again because we're asking it to make me an instance of this class. It's not going to work. Oh, I spelled the file name wrong. There we go. This is what's useful about tests. Shows us when we make mistakes. Not going to get all worried about it. Cool. So basically what we've shown is that this thing can make an instance of anything on its own. And I think that's cool. We're not going to want to have to like new this up every time. How I would do that for real is create a function to access it, but I want to just like add a service where we're trying to get you know, just one like global singleton to show how that would work. So let's do something like API client. And let's imagine it's something like API key. So you want to pass this around to lots of different parts of your plugin, just the same instance of this API key function. So if I go back to container test, let me show you what's not good about this. This is going to work. If I try and assert that they're the same and that they're equals, the equals should pass because they're both instances of API class. If we do like two of these like this. But they're not the same instance, so that'll actually fail. Yeah, see, first issue is that this doesn't even work because we can't pass it this guy here. So we can actually do plugin instance. It should do it, I think, at least through there. Right, and if we go here and we do get a function to do that. Make one and then get the API key. It should be the same as this thing I passed it above. That's how you make a function. Cool. So now we've seen how to use this to do that. It's all automatically going to have that API key and we can pass it around to anywhere else in the plugin. In these paths, to show that they're similar, they are both objects of the same class, but they're not. And they're also exactly the same object. If we bring this up here, we do this, this should fail now. Because see, these don't reference the same object. That's actually what we want. For product, we want to be able to create a product over and over again, get different ones, and we probably want to have something like name, right? Like these are going to have properties of them, and so this is now going to fail again because we didn't pass the dependency there. Let's make it's easier for a second. So we're going to have to register this as well. This time we're going to use bind and product class. And then closure again. Yeah, that's how you type that key. So this is going to pass this plugin in then args, and we're going to go return new product, and then thread the args in. That should work, I believe. Yep. Because now we do this name here, and that goes in as its name, and we can test that works. Equals 2. We'll test that that works, right? That we're passing this argument for the name. First thing that goes to here, the first argument in the constructor. Test that again. Oh, I have to get the property there. So that passes, and then I'm going to have to update these to prevent errors. So let's just commit all that. Then, you just committed this stuff. I was testing the CLI could out of block. Yeah, because I will push this up to GitHub, this plugin. And it's on a specific branch. I'll link to that in the video description. But let's go ahead here and let's I'm gonna try to make one single instance of this just as a way to show how I would use this. And also, like, this isn't enough. Like, I'm just showing you how I would figure out how it works using this test. This isn't, like, none of these services are actually registered in my plugin. So let's go into functions and let's create a function. And let's call this candle. This is going to be like the main thing. I'm going to use a static variable. So that persist calls to this function. It'll stick around for the whole session, but it's not available outside of the scope of this. So if it's not, and then I'll return it. But do action. Right there. So let's actually go into the WordPress test, because everything we were doing there, it is here. Docker compose run phpunit. none of those actually loaded that main plugin file that included that function. So let's build that. Should be anything really here. Okay, cool. And then let's copy this here and let's call this container test. What were we doing? Yep, we want to test that this runs. So, like, does this get returned the right type of instance? So there were more tests that time and that passed. And then let's assert that those are the same. If we get it twice, it's the same instance each time. Cool. So let's do some things that aren't exactly going to work. Like this exact test here. Just copy this and let's do it a little bit differently, right? Actually, can I replace this? What's going to happen here? Well, that's not fair. It's not in scope. See, we don't have this on, we have this on resolved dependency. We actually need to register this, which was my point. So, I already know how to do that. I already prove it to myself here. So if I just go back to functions and go name of the variable is now difference. I have to use namespace there. But now this passes. And so we can actually use it in the plugin and we can see how this action becomes useful to us. If we wanted to move this same one here, like test product. Let's do this one again, just replacing it with the accessor function. sure product is in. Scope here. This. And closing the class. That's not going to work yet. I'm going to need to kind of copy this binding here. Like up here in hooks, or function, sorry. That would be a good place to do it actually. But we'll get to that in a second. And again, I just copied this from my test. Exactly the same thing, and it should pass. No, what did I do wrong? Saying this before I didn't bring these into scope. Cool, that works. And then what's kind of neat here is that we could do something like service contract.php. Function. And then what's this here? So now what we could potentially do is like make API client, implement service contract. And so let's calls candle. So I'll paste clearly. And then if I go back to my unit test for this, because this is kind of a dumb test, I don't really need this. If I make plugin, right? Will that pass? It might. Yeah, also that's not the right test. These are back in my unit tests. See, that worked because of this service registration. And then, now that I know that the callback works, instead of doing this here, let's open up this hooks file over here. And instead of doing this, that still works. And then if we do the same thing we did here in product, we don't need these. This is a lot cleaner syntax. I like it. Let's just copy this because we're going to need it a second on the other file. And this could be a loop, right? Like, because we're following this. But if I go back to, is it still registered with WordPress? Yep. And then let's just do that same conversion of the binding, where we're going to use that. And that's a unit test. And so this is an example of how I'm going to use tests in my WordPress plugin, where I started off just writing these tests, and they were fairly contrived. Like, I was binding, right, to undo what I just did. Like, that doesn't actually do anything in my plugin. It's just proving that it could, and also I made some mistakes along the way, so I got my mind around how to use Laravel container in a WordPress plugin, which is a little bit different than in Laravel, like I'm used to. But I'll delete that. What I ended up doing was turning this totally contrived test into a way of testing my the service container contract, which I can't test directly because you can't instantiate a service contract, a interface. Sorry. So that ended up, that shows that it could work, but the WordPress tests here show that it's actually set up, the hook's working, it's doing its thing. I'm not directly testing the hook, I'm just testing that the hook worked with WordPress properly, which is what I'm looking for with the integration tests. Does it integrate with WordPress correctly? And also proving that this little accessor function I wrote worked correctly. So that way, I've separated the concern of managing the state of the one true instance of the main plugin file, the main plugin class, without mixing that, like, without losing the ability of when you have a main plugin class in WordPress and it's a singleton, that's helpful because you can call it statically anywhere and access the properties of it. This is more powerful because it's a container and we still have a function to globally access these things, but these services can now be replaced in testing or in add-on plugins. And I'll show you how that works with this API client in another video coming up soon. So like and subscribe to this channel for more. Thanks.